Wow, you really weren't kidding when you said this next deep dive was going to be intense. We're talking AI, right? Big topic.
Yeah, no kidding. And this time, we're going straight to the sources, actually. We've got a whole stack of briefings and presentations from that big technology impact summit that just wrapped up in Graz, Austria.
Graz, Austria, huh? Okay, so we're not just talking about AI in some abstract Silicon Valley bubble sort of way. This is about how AI is landing in the real world, in a place trying to figure out its own approach to this whole AI revolution.
Exactly. And it's interesting because Austria and really Europe in general seem to be approaching AI with a very different mindset than, say, the US. But before we get into that, maybe we should back up a bit. For those of us who haven't been glued to the Graz Summit live stream, what was the overall vibe like?
Intense. Like, seriously, those opening remarks from the rectors of TU Graz and the University of Graz talk about bringing the energy. I felt like I needed an espresso just listening to them.
They were definitely fired up, and rightfully so. They see AI as crucial for Austria's future, a chance to really put themselves on the map in terms of research and innovation. That whole science deal thing they kept mentioning, that's basically their grand plan for becoming a major player in the global AI landscape.
Okay, so science deal, break it down for us. What exactly are they proposing?
Well, it's kind of like a massive investment strategy. Think funding, infrastructure, attracting top talent, all geared towards making Austria a hub for AI research and development. They're really putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Bold move. But I also picked up on like this undercurrent of anxiety. It's like they're excited about the possibilities, but also a little wary of, unleashing something they can't control.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the tightrope they're walking. And it's where that difference between Europe and the US really comes into play. Because Europe, particularly a country like Austria, tends to be much more cautious about new technologies. They're really focused on setting clear boundaries, establishing ethical guidelines, even if it means maybe slowing down the pace of development.
So it's like the US is all full speed ahead. Let's see what this thing can do. And Europe, particularly Austria, is hitting the brakes and saying, hold on, let's think this through and make sure we're doing this responsibly.
Exactly. And that tension was palpable at the summit, this constant push and pull between embracing the possibilities and mitigating the risks. Like, how much regulation is too much? Where do you draw the line between fostering innovation and, well, preventing a robot apocalypse?
Okay, so maybe not a full-blown robot apocalypse, but I get your point. And this isn't just some abstract debate, right? This is going to impact all of us in very real ways.
Oh, absolutely. AI is already seeping into every aspect of our lives, whether we realize it or not. And these decisions being made right now in places like Graz are going to shape how that impact plays out in the years to come.
And speaking of impact, can we talk about everyone's favorite AI worry? The robots coming for our jobs. I mean, is this summit all sunshine and science deals, or are people actually concerned about the economic consequences of this AI revolution?
Yeah, no, that was definitely a big topic of conversation. And honestly, it's tricky because it's not like some sci-fi movie where the robots just show up one day and take over. It's way more nuanced. But one thing that really stuck with me, they cited the statistic that 68% of workers feel totally bogged down by tasks they hate, like genuinely dread doing.
Okay, I feel seen. I think we've all had those days.
Yeah.
Right? Mountains of paperwork, endless emails, stuff that just sucks the life out of you.
Right. And so the argument goes, what if AI could take over those soul-crushing repetitive tasks? What if, instead of spending hours on that stuff, we were freed up to focus on the more creative, strategic, actually fulfilling aspects of our work?
Okay, that does sound kind of utopian, but let's be real. What about the people whose jobs are those repetitive tasks? The ones AI is supposedly going to free us from. What happens to them in this scenario?
Yeah, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Nobody at the summit pretended to have all the answers, but the general consensus seemed to be that it's not really about jobs disappearing altogether, but rather about them shifting, evolving, kind of like what's happened with every major technological leap.
You're right. We've been through this before. Printing press, industrial revolution.
Yeah.
The internet, it's always disruptive in the moment, but we adapt. But it's still a little unnerving,
Yeah.
Especially with how fast AI is developing.
Oh, for sure. And that's why the summit kept circling back to the idea of upskilling. Basically, the skills that a lot of people rely on now, especially those routine, easily automated tasks, those might become obsolete pretty quickly. But it's not like those jobs vanish into thin air. It's more like those same jobs start requiring different skills.
So it's less about, will the robots take my job? And more about, am I ready for my job to change? Kind of puts things in perspective.
Definitely. And that's where this idea of complementary skills comes in. The idea being that AI will likely end up handling a lot of the data-heavy, repetitive stuff, but it's those uniquely human abilities where we really need to step up.
Right, so things like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, creativity, the stuff AI, at least for now, can't quite replicate. And I imagine being able to work alongside AI to understand how it thinks, that's going to be huge too.
Exactly. Like, we need people who can develop AI, analyze its output, make sure it's actually being used responsibly and effectively. It's like this whole new category of jobs is about to explode. We're all going to be AI whisperers or something.
AI whisperers, and I kind of like the sound of that. But seriously, it really highlights how important it is to be adaptable, to constantly be learning and evolving our skill sets.
Totally. I mean, that was one of the biggest takeaways for me from this whole summit, that this isn't something happening to us. It's something we need to be actively shaping. Like, what skills do we need to thrive in this new world? How can we start developing those skills today? These are questions we all need to be asking ourselves, regardless of what field we're in.
Okay, so we're all going to be AI whisperers, learning to adapt and evolve alongside this rapidly changing tech landscape. But what does that even mean for, like, the next generation? How do we prepare kids for a future where AI is the norm, not the exception?
Yeah, and the summit definitely did not shy away from that question. In fact, there was a lot of talk about how Austria's education system, education systems around the world, need a serious AI-powered makeover.
Which is kind of ironic when you think about it, right? We spent all this time drilling facts and figures into kids' heads, but now they can just, like, ask a chatbot for the capital of Uzbekistan or whatever.
Exactly. And that's precisely the point. Rote memorization is, well, it's becoming kind of obsolete. The real challenge now, the thing that everyone at the summit seemed to agree on, is that we need to teach kids how to think critically, how to evaluate information from a million different sources. Like, how do you even know what's true anymore when you've got AI algorithms curating your entire reality?
It's like, forget knowing the what. We need to be teaching the why and the how. But how do you even begin to teach that kind of critical thinking in a world where technology is everywhere all the time?
Right. It's a tough one. There was this whole debate at the summit about digital literacy, which I found fascinating. Like, should schools just ban devices altogether, like some are already doing? Or do you lean into it and teach kids how to use technology responsibly, ethically, without, losing their minds in the process?
It's such a parental dilemma, too. Like, you've got all these Silicon Valley execs who are, like, famously strict about limiting their own kids' screen time. Talk about mixed messages, right?
Right. But I think it speaks to the heart of the issue, which is that it's all about balance. It's about figuring out how to integrate AI, how to use it as a tool that enhances our abilities, not a crutch we become totally dependent on.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether. It's about being thoughtful, intentional, just like Austria is trying to be with its whole approach to AI.
Exactly. And if they can figure out how to cultivate that kind of mindful innovation, not just in their tech sector, but in their education system, in their society as a whole, well, that could be a really powerful model for the rest of the world.
So from grappling with the future of work to reimagining education, it's pretty clear that AI is transforming our world in ways we're only just beginning to grasp. And honestly, it's a little intimidating, this whole AI revolution thing. But you know what?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if the folks over in Graz can wrap their heads around it, maybe there's hope for the rest of us.
I'm with you on that. And you know what? That's what we're here for, right? To dig into these complex issues, to try and make sense of it all. It's a wild ride, this whole AI thing, but hey, at least we're in it together.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're going to go grab another espresso and brace ourselves for whatever mind-blowing tech revolution awaits us next. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.